Right Honorable Uzoma Nkem Abonta is known for using the instrumentality of law and legislation combined with uncommon foresight to positively lift society, garnished with unswerving commitment to good governance and social justice, are dimensions strongly needed by a society in the throes of very challenging transformation. Representative Uzoma Nkem Abonta is an astute lawyer and national parliamentarian. He pushes a vision of changing society through, and that has become a defining feature of his life story. He was born in Akwete, in Ukwa East local government area of Abia State on January 18, 1962. Young Uzoma had his primary school education at
St. Raphael School,
Abohe, now known as Central School Abohe, between 1970 and 1974, before proceeding for his secondary school education at Stella Maris College, Port Harcourt, Rivers State, between 1974 and 1979, where he obtained his West African School Certificate. Moving forward, he obtained his higher school certificate from the School of Basic Studies, Port Harcourt, between 1980 and 1982. He enrolled at the University of Jos between 1984 and 1998, bagging his degree in law at the Bachelor of Law degree. Thereafter, he proceeded to the Nigerian Law School, Lagos, for his Barrister of Law degree and subsequently called to the Nigerian Bar. And in addition, he obtained his master's degree in law, still at the University of Jos, from 1990 to 1992. Having equipped himself with professional knowledge, he moved into the working phase of life. From 1990, Right Honorable Uzoma Nkem Abonta has worked conscientiously in several establishments in different capacities.
In China, more than 1/3 of their earnings comes from traditional.
Quintessential Uzoma Nkem Abonta had been into politics at various levels before being deservedly elevated to his current position as a member representing Ukwa East, Ukwa West Federal Constituency in the year 2007. He was also unanimously re-elected in 2011 to consolidate of his positive and life-impacting representation of his people. He was adjudged as a legislator with the highest number of bills sponsored in the 7th Assembly in the Green Chambers and still was the lead in the 8th Assembly. Uzoma Nkem Abonta was the chairman House Committee on Public Petitions. The committee under his chairmanship has resolved hundreds of petitions which restored hope to many Nigerians in the manner never witnessed in our democracy. As a legislator with the highest number of bills both in the 7th and 8th Assembly, Nkem Abonta is certainly the best lawmaker as at the last count. He was nominated and consequently awarded the Legislator of the Year by National Assembly Press Corps, House of Representatives. He has single-handedly sponsored, co-sponsored and contributed to bills and motions, though attention is given to bills in his chronicle with emphasis on the 8th Assembly. In June 1, 2016, he contributed to the principle of the Bill for an Act to provide the Institute of Telecom Services tax and the Bill for an Act to provide an establishment of communications.
Mr. Speaker, double taxation is not illegal. It is a specialized taxation. Mr. Speaker, in oil industry, we put double taxation to them. I'll give you an example. Oil companies are made to pay 3% of their project to some certain commission, the example ministry. Yet they still pay their normal profit tax. Mr. Speaker, double taxation in society can be considered equal, but in speciality, it can. Mr. Speaker, telecom industries is the next alternative to oil in Nigeria. If you look at our industry, if you minus oil industry, the next highest one you have telecommunications. And in telecommunications, what is the percentage of Nigerians involved in it?
an income bracket. It's okay.
Everything has been sold for peanuts. Who are those for? It's not the sole employer, it's not equal to the license of the public employee made in Nigeria capacity to want to get the full war. Yet, it's the statistics. Yet the money is taken away. If you can have equal attention on these providers to have we can. I'm coming. Mr. Speaker, on this floor, we have argued for emergency telecom services, whereby you have toll-free calls like 111, 991, and all calls. How are we going to fund it? If we do not compare them to surrender part of their profit. Mr. Speaker, as at the time of introducing telecom industries, once we calculate our shortfalls, there's no other thing for all this improvement. As at the time we had an agreement with telecom industries, our legal partners were short-sighted. They closed agreement in favor of telecom. Even a 5-day holiday, tax holiday.
In June 2, 2016, he co-sponsored a bill on Chartered Institute of Finance and Control in Nigeria to regulate and control chartered finance.
Honorable colleagues, we have chartered bankers controlled by Chartered Institute of Banking. We have MBA controlled by Nigerian Bar Association. We even have NILS, Nigerian Institute of Legislative Studies, to professionalize yes, what is left undone, which Mr. Speaker one day will come. We also have chartered accountants, but even when a chartered accountant in Finland or whatever, so this group of persons came to party process asking for a platform where they can have a career course, able to tell the members what you can do and you cannot do. Go on. I pray members give them the liberty to practice what they claim they are.
October 11, 2016, he sponsored a bill to establish the International Trade Commission of Nigeria for the purposes of coordinating policies, interests, and issues relating to international trade for Nigeria.
Honorable colleagues, it interests you to know that a lot of countries, United States of America, Japan, Singapore, Malaysia, China, Hong Kong, Taiwan, India, South Africa, Kenya, and a lot of them operate a commission that regulates their international trade. How come Nigeria, the giant of Africa, we do not have a single bus stop that can regulate our international activities? Nigeria is a signatory to a lot of bilateral commercial arrangements, yet there is no place where it is being coordinated. I think that the absence of International Trade Commission is a serious lacuna in our international activities. Mr. Speaker, it's quite true we are trying to shrink the cost of governance, but we must not allow the witch to overtake the cross because we do not want to wait. This commission, when created, will also boost our economy. It will generate funds for itself and then for government. It's just to bring those who want to sell and those who want to buy, and also get us a very favorable environment to trade. Mr. Speaker, in the recent past, those that trade are either being cheated by unfavorable conditions, double taxation about export and import, but this is what the Commission will handle and promote what we trade. I therefore urge my colleagues to please allow this bill a second time so that the experts at the committee level will look at it and dot the T's and I's. I am not an expert or claim super monopoly of knowledge in that area.
Order. Honorable colleagues, order.
But I deemed it fit
Honorable Lawa Kumau
that in course of our sojourn and travel in other climes, what we see there that they used to grow the economy and come out the woods should also be applicable in Nigeria. I therefore pray everybody here to support it that we may call experts to come together and give us a good regulation about this. I so speak, Mr. Speaker.
November 2, 2016, he co-sponsored a bill to establish National Commission for Peace, Reconciliation and Mediation.
The bill seeks to forge peace in Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, in recent time, leading back towards 10, 15 years, all we hear is one conflict, one uprising, one insurgent, or the other. Some of these things happen because there is no appropriate quarters to complain to. There is no commission where you can table this matter and argue it. For example, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Osasa just raised an issue now where nomadic herdsmen are on the move to kill Ndokwa people. I think one of the jobs of this commission will be to identify such problems and seek to reconcile, find out the immediate and remote causes to it. I think that this bill is very harmless if passed. We may not know exactly the framework or the composition, but at the committee stage, at the time when the stakeholders, of course we are all stakeholders in getting peace for Nigeria, will go into this matter, they will be able to define, formulate, and draw a broad-based policy for this. Mr. Speaker, some people are of the opinion that we need not repeal the Advisory Council on Religious Affairs. I think that this is a matter for the committee to look at, whether they will make it an additional job for that, or whether they will also separate it. But I want to beg my colleagues that we need to allow this get to the committee stage where people with adequate knowledge, wisdom on such state issues will gather and look at it. I so urge my colleagues to allow it move to second reading.
November 24, 2016, he contributed to amend the bill on NILS Act 2011 to NILDS.
Democratic studies. Can you legislate properly in autocratic environment? Can you legislate in a monarchy? They decree, they proclaim. Properly, ideally, it must be in a democratic environment. The crisis we have today in Nigeria is undemocratic practice, not even the legislative practice. However, Mr. Speaker, there are certain clauses intended by the author of this bill. He cannot claim monopoly of knowledge, but at the committee stage, at the time when experts look at it, they will delete what should not be. But for the nomenclature and adding democratic studies to this bill is proper. It's like, let me also take Prof on what he argued. If you go to a school, they say legal studies and what. The legality is built on something. The legislative process studies is built on democracy. Are you going to legislate in a military environment? No. Therefore, democratic studies must be there to complement legislative studies. It is not in conflict with abroad, it's not in conflict with any other thing. So, honorable colleagues, we need to institutionalize properly our democracy. That's the only way legislation can be. I therefore want to beg our colleagues to allow this bill during the second reading at the committee stage. At the time we're doing public hearing, the T's and I's will be dotted. What should not belong here properly should be deleted. The bill is not saying take over the job of budgeting for the House or Financial Assembly or no, but to put a broad-based legislative and voting matters, whereby the local government, when they become independent, will benefit. They're not going to only train National Assembly members, no, they will train national, state, and local government. How about legislators from the local government, which is a necessary third-tier government? Don't they have legislators? Mr. Speaker was once a local government councillor and also a leader, the equivalent of speaker then, and we legislators, we made bylaws and all what not. They will also be trained at the local level. They will be trained at the state level. They will be trained at the national level. Therefore, I do not think the center will usurp any power for any at all, but is to create proper democratic environment and studies that legislature will complement and guide. I therefore support this bill.
December 7, 2016, contributed on a bill to amend the ARCN Act 2004 to reduce the number of members of the governing board.
I have listened extensively to Honorable Linus Okorie and mindful of agreeing with him partly and also trying to, on principle, to say no. He's asking for, on two issues I will want to depart from him. He's asking that all the research institutes be brought under one umbrella. It will create some bureaucratic bottleneck and will not allow need for specialization. Some research centers may begin to research, for example, on issues of cassava like AITA in Ibadan. They are cassava experts. Some research institutes in Ibadan may handle cocoa. They will be experts in cocoa. By the time we bring all of them under one umbrella, we are going to have some problem. They will be master of none, jack of all trades, and maybe a master of none. On that issue, I will say that at the committee level, we should be able to separate. Secondly, on the issue of 1% of every exportable or importable revenue from agriculture to be given to them, I should think may make them richer than Nigeria or whatever. It will be too much for them to manage. I think also at the committee level, they should look at that figure and scale it down, that they may not turn to another NMPC without knowing how to handle it. If these issues be observed by the committee level, I think that our research centers should be modernized, should be reorganized, should be brought to standard to meet the modern, the good governance that will make them give us food sufficiency. On that note, I want to support the bill, but place an injunction that they should be careful not to bring all of them under one umbrella. It will not do us a lot of good.
December 14, 2016, sponsored a bill to establish the Nigeria Free Zones Authority and to repeal the Nigeria Export Processing Zones Act.
Mr. Speaker, these 32 free zones seem to operate without a comprehensive guideline, without a purposeful directions. They are all being operated by different rules. What this bill seeks to do, Mr. Speaker, is to repeal the Nigerian Export Processing Zone as they were known, and then establish the Free Zone Authority to replace and take over the functions of Nigerian Export Processing Zone Authority. The rapid development of free zone in Nigeria through the provisions of a regulatory framework will definitely regulate, articulate, and direct the functions of this free zone. As it is now, we have these free zones scattered all over the country, free for all, without a proper regulation to guide it. What this bill is trying to do is to repeal the export free zones, because free zone may not necessarily be export oriented. It can also be manufactured for consumptions within the country. Like I defined earlier, free zone is deemed to be within the country but outside the country's jurisdiction, just like an embassy. They are not subject to our work. Now that we're looking for a way to diversify our economy, now want to grow and get developed, we must put the platform that will encourage people to come. Free zone is more or less asking people, come, we're making a conducive environment for you to operate. Come and operate. But we must have a regulation. We must have a standard thing put in place for the performance. Mr. Speaker and colleagues, I'm aware that last week there was also a public hearing, I think, by our senior counterpart on this free zone matter, so that we may be able to be at the same platform with them. Otherwise, our commerce may not go internationally. We may not be able to balance our trade effectively if we don't have a regulated free zone. If we leave it to the women and capitals of those who put it there and so on, then we may not have a normal order.
At the turn of 2017, he made further debuts in lawmaking, hence January 10, 2017, sponsored bill to harmonize the function of the National Manpower Board and National Planning Commission.
I move that a bill for an act to provide for the administrative and political structure of area councils of the Federal Capital Territory and for related matters be read for the second time. I so move, Mr. Speaker. Uzoma Nkem Abonta. Mr. Speaker, this bill is predicated and in pursuant to Section 7 of the Constitution and Section 299, sub A of the Constitution, for the kind permission of the Speaker, permit me to read. Mr. Speaker, the Constitution, Section 7 as amended, says the system of local government by democratically elected local government council is under this Constitution guaranteed, and accordingly the government of every state shall, subject to Section 8 of this Constitution, ensure their existence under a law which provides for the establishment, structure, composition, finance, and functions of such councils. It's a mandatory constitutional requirement that every state should have that. Mr. Speaker, Section 299 of the Constitution makes it mandatory for National Assembly to legislate for Federal Capital Territory. With the kind permission, may I read, Section 299 says, the provision of this Constitution shall apply to the Federal Capital Territory, Abuja, as if it were one of the states of the Federal, and accordingly, all legislative powers, the executive powers, and judicial powers vested in the House of Assembly, the governor of a state, and the courts of a state shall respectively vest in the National Assembly. What am I saying, Mr. Speaker? That failure to provide for FCT has been our responsibility, should be our blame. And this bill seems to cure that inactivity arising from National Assembly. So this bill, Mr. Speaker, is to, in tandem with the Constitution, provide for administrative and political structure of FCT. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, there exist 6 local government area councils in Abuja. It may surprise you to know that for many years from their creation, they've been running without any legal backing. In other words, they've been running what looks like an illegal, not properly composed council. To legalize it now, this bill seeks to legalize and formalize the area councils that they function in line with our Constitution. And therefore, urge honorable colleagues to give this bill a backing that at the committee stage, all will be properly done.
January 10, 2017, contributed on a bill to provide for the establishment of City Technical University, Kaduna.
The school is existing school with all the facilities required of a university. Mr. Speaker, the school is existing with all the departments and colleges required of a university. Mr. Speaker, we are talking about industrialization and technological issues in Nigeria. There is no other time better than now for us to support technology and technical issues. Mr. Speaker, I'm mindful of supporting this bill, additionally for the fact that
silence, please.
School zones ought to have a technical university to represent.
Silence, please, honorable members. Order, please.
If the university in Kaduna is already issuing technical courses, Mr. Speaker, is in the right direction. All we need to do is to elevate them to the status of a university that other zones may also
Honorable Gisalo. Honorable Gisalo, please take your seat.
Having read the bill itself, I'm inspired to also come with another one about the Southeast, so we can have full industrialization and technology. The only issue I need to pick with this bill, which will be done at the second stage, is the name. Giving a city university makes it a miniature, makes it look little. Therefore, at the committee stage, it should be called Federal University of Technology, Kaduna.
February 28, 2017, contributed on a bill to provide for the enforcement and punishment of crime against humanity, war crimes, genocide, and other related offenses.
The bill is seeking to come into law is what we have subscribed already at the international arena. Mr. Speaker, the absence of domestication of these international treaties and laws makes Nigeria very vulnerable, whether we are worth a nation entering into treaties. We attend several conventions and treaties without giving them effect here. It's like entering into an agreement we are not ready and willing to support the implementation. Therefore, not this alone, all other treaties, conventions that were largely entered with the Community of Nations, we should do our best to have them domesticated. More so, this is coming at a time where Nigeria is currently witnessing the major crimes as listed there.
March 2, 2017, sponsored a bill to establish the FCT Traffic Management and Enforcement Authority.
The need for this piece of legislation is to ensure safety of mobility, improve compliance with traffic rules and regulations in the area under reference. I therefore solicit your support to let this bill do a second reading. That the Abuja municipals, the Abuja LGs will have a legal framework to operate. Mr. Speaker, in all the other states, notably Lagos, Port Harcourt, Edo, Delta, they have this bill that manages movement of traffic. Abuja cannot do it from the presidency. It can only be done by National Assembly. Hence, we propose this bill that the House should pass it, that it turns to a law. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
March 9, 2017, sponsored a bill to alter the provisions of Section 315 of the Constitution of the FRN 1999 by deleting the entire section.
The need for this piece of legislation is to ensure safety of mobility, improve compliance with traffic rules and regulations in the area under reference. I therefore solicit your support to let this bill do a second reading. That the Abuja municipals, the Abuja LGs will have a legal framework to operate. Mr. Speaker, in all the other states, notably Lagos, Port Harcourt, Edo, Delta, they have this bill that manages movement of traffic. Abuja cannot do it from the presidency. It can only be done by National Assembly. Hence, we propose this bill that the House should pass it, that it turns to a law. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
March 9, 2017, sponsored a bill to alter the provisions of the Section 317 of the Constitution of the FRN 1999 by deleting the word "without prejudice" to the generality of Section 315 of this Constitution.
The meeting from tonight till Monday. On that note, Mr. Speaker, I will concede that Honorable Ibrahim Sadiq, who is advised on this, I'll concede that he leads the debate. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
May 10, 2017, contributed on a bill to amend the Minister's Statutory Powers and Duties Act 2004 to delete the provision requiring a minister.
Mr. Speaker, the issues are very, very simple. A minister on his own right who wants to do a private information need not gazette it. But if it's official and permanent representation or delegation must be gazetted. Otherwise, it becomes a letter. A minister may want a friend to represent him in a function. It shouldn't come on a gazette. But if a minister wants to delegate a particular power that will be carried by somebody, it must come to the gazette, and that will become official notice to the world at large. Anything short of it will mean it's a private communication that is not official. And if you intend to have a minister's private communication, then he need not gazette. If he intends for us to be aware that Mr. ABZ will present him and carry out certain functions on his behalf, it must be put on notice, and that notice is gazette. That's what is accepted worldwide. Anything short of it will derail of official communication. Thank you, Mr.
May 10, 2017, sponsored a bill to repeal and reenact the Oil and Gas Export Free Zone Authority Act to provide for the designation and establishment of oil and gas free zone and special.
Properly place oil and gas business in a proper context. What this bill is seeking to do is to, in line with the policy of government to improve our revenue base and work within proper professionalism in the oil sector and the gas zone, to create a proper zone where oil and gas business will be done with international accepted practices. Mr. Speaker, going by the current economic situation we are facing, there is then every need for us to optimally maximize the benefit from oil and gas free zone. Mr. Speaker, the benefit of this, if this bill sails through, is that it will also increase the local content in the oil and gas sector. Therefore, we can only add value by through good legislations that will bring about good government. Mr. Speaker, if this bill comes into place, it will also help us to determine the quantum, volume, and the amount of oil and gas business being done in Nigeria. Therefore, without belaboring and taking more time from the House, I want to say and plead with members to support the passage of this bill, like Mr. Sai would say, with the speed of light. At the committee stage, professionals, stakeholders will come and look at it appropriately and give us a proper repeal and enactment of oil and gas export free zone authority, that they may be isolated from all the other modules in it. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
June 1, 2017, co-sponsored a bill to establish the Southeast Development Commission.
Development, as we even saw a bill this afternoon that was asking for fund for sustainable development. What Southeast is asking for, more or less, is an opportunity to have fund for sustainable development, coupled with what they may get from there. Mr. Speaker, if we go back to history lane, it is only proper that we must be united in the sovereign welfare of Nigeria. Mr. Speaker, history is not far-fetched. In the Southeast, we have a lot of agitations, even going on right now. What is the reason of these agitations? If you look at the cost root of it, you will see that it's not far-fetched from what we are asking for. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, not too long we came out from insurgents, we will not finish conquering Boko Haram. If you look at the study of it, what led to the insurgents? The poor conditions of the Northeast. For the fact that they lacked a lot of infrastructures and education. How did we remedy it? We came here and provided commission to address the issues of Northeast and to take care of internally displaced persons. If you also look down the Southeast, you also notice a lot of internally displaced persons that have not been addressed. No wonder the hero of Nigeria, General Gowon, in his wisdom, at the end of the war, declared 3 R's: reconstruction, rehabilitation, and reconciliation. Mr. Speaker, 50 years after it has not been done. Honorable colleagues, few days ago, Mr. Speaker, you were in Aba. Aba is a disaster zone. From calculations, Aba alone took over 1,000 bombs from the Civil War. That created all the holes and the erosion and all whatnot. If we cannot now have a commission to address these peculiarities, these issues as it affects Southeast, then there won't be the opportunity again. We are the age where we must look at issues realistically. I want to beg my colleagues that the honorable thing to do is to allow the commission. Private venture, others may also take the cue. There's nothing wrong per se. Before this time, Nigeria ran on regional basis. Before this time, Nigeria ran successfully on regional basis, where people managed what they got in the way they deemed fit. Am I protected? If we do not look at issues in that manner, then some will feel neglected, some will feel marginalized, some will feel as second-class citizens, then agitations may be on the increase. Whatever is bringing up the agitation in the Southeast, we should look for a way to cushion it now, to address it and nip it in the bud before it will snowball to something we cannot handle. I think that this bill seeks to cure a lot of things and to stop what could be futuristic crisis in Nigeria. I'll take example. In the Niger Delta, before the crisis came, the surgeon came, what happened? They were made to be spectators in the industry and not partakers.
June 14, 2017 sponsored a bill to establish the Nigerian Communications Satellite Corporation, empowered to engage in purchase and otherwise acquire or take over assets, business, company, firm.
I remain Uzoma Nkem Abonta. Mr. Speaker, my care indulges that I be permitted to come under Order 12, Rule 16 in pursuit of the second reading of this bill. Mr. Speaker, Order 12, Rule 16 of our bill, of our rule, say that bills passed by the Constituent Assembly and forwarded to the Senate for concurrence, for which no concurrence was made or negative, or passed by the Senate and forwarded to the House, for which no concurrence was made or negative, or which were passed by the National Assembly and forwarded to the President for assent, but which assent or withholding thereof was not communicated before the end of the tenure of the Assembly. The House may resolve that such bill, upon being regazetted or clean copy circulated, be reconsidered in the committee of the whole without being commenced de novo. Mr. Speaker, I therefore move that this bill be, having been regazetted as and circulated as HB 644 and circulated, the committed to the House of the whole, the labor of our heroes past shall never be in vain. The 7th Assembly completed this bill and committed it to the Senate, but the concurrence thereof was not done because of a session of time. I so move that it be committed to the whole House based on Order 12, Rule 16. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Linda.
Ably moved by Honorable Abonta. So second.
Those in favor? Ayes have it. Now recognized to read the long title of the bill.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to establish the Nigerian Communications Satellite Corporation empowered to engage in purchase and otherwise acquire or take over the assets, business, company, firm, or persons, and act in furtherance of all and any business associated and or relating to the satellite communications industry and for related matters. Second reading.
October 4, 2017 contributed on a bill to establish and regulate the Nigerian Assets Management Agency.
You will see all the buildings marked EFCC for the past 5 years. They've been so marked, they've been so there. Mr. Speaker, I think that Jones must have gotten this win as a result of his activities in banking. Mr. Speaker, if I speak from what we do in the public petition, you will see a lot of properties that have been seized, forfeited, and are still hanging. Nobody manages them. I also think that the proper thing to do is to have an agency saddled with a clear responsibility to manage them, to give them utmost value. If after 3 years AMCON ceases to be no more, they may transfer part of their liability to this present one that will be all encompassing. I think that in the words of Osai, this bill should be passed with the speed of light, that we may begin to look at government property as if they belong to somebody. More so, we are privileged to know that the Senate had done the second reading. We may not only be concurring what Senate did, we should also be proactive and have our own done. So therefore, I support the bill.
In 2018, he was already at his peak and made some landmarks in bill formulations and passage. March 22, 2018, sponsored a bill to amend the Public Enterprises Act 2004 to reveal the list of the enterprise to be privatized.
Sixth order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principles of Bill for an Act to amend the Public Enterprises Privatization and Commercialization Act.
Uzoma Nkem Abonta again. Mr. Speaker, may I move that a bill for an act to amend the Public Enterprise Privatization and Commercialization Act, Cap P38, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to review the list of enterprises to be privatized and for related matters and be read for the second time. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Ukwa East Federal Constituency and from Rivers State, I rise to second the motion as moved by Honorable Abonta, so second.
Honorable Abonta, please lead the debate.
Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, this bill seeks to amend the law of privatization and commercialization, where by deleting Ajakuta Steel Company Limited under steel and aluminium sector in Part 1 of the first schedule that authorized the board of the privatization to commercialize and privatize. If we have got past the other bill to provide special funds to this, then it is very necessary that we also do the needful, test our political power to delete it therefrom, because if you provide funds to still complete it and allow it to remain in the purview of the market, I mean, the overzealous executive will still go ahead and sell it either by commission or omission. I therefore pray that we allow this to be, that Nigerians will have the benefit of steel. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
The bill be now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it.
March 22, 2018, sponsored a bill to establish Federal Polytechnic, Asa, Abia State.
Order of the day is commencement of debate on the general principle of Bill for an Act to establish a Federal Polytechnic, Asa, Abia State, to provide for equity and access to tertiary education in the country, make comprehensive provisions for its due management and administration and for related matters. Standing in the name of Honorable Uzoma Nkem Abonta, honorable members who recall that the bill was read the first time on Tuesday, 19th December 2017. I now invite Honorable Abonta to move the bill be now read the second time.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I remain Uzoma Nkem Abonta. Mr. Speaker, I move that a bill for an act to establish the Federal Polytechnic or Asa, Abia State, to provide for equity and access to tertiary education in the country, make comprehensive provision for its due management and administration and related matters that be read for the second time. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Sergius.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I'm a highly esteemed colleague. I'm Sergius Ose Ogun. I represent Eastern Southeast, Eastern Northeast, and I'm from Edo State. I rise to second the motion that the bill be read for a second time. Mr. Speaker, I so move.
Honorable Abonta, please lead the debate.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Honorable colleagues, I remain Uzoma Nkem Abonta. Mr. Speaker, this bill is not contentious, but it's asking for equity, and having seen the time spent so far, I will be mindful of time and therefore ask that my colleagues should please allow this bill pass. We are only asking for equity. If this House, that part of our representation is to make sure that in sharing the national cake, that everybody gets a fair and due portion of what is owned collectively. As we speak, so there is no federal presence in terms of polytechnical or technical education in Abia State, while some states can have 2 or more. I therefore simply ask that this bill be allowed, second reading, that the people of Abia State may have a federal polytechnic. More so, there's an existing structure. All the infrastructure needed for this has been provided and built by the Ministry of Niger Delta, Ministry of Niger Delta already. They provided all the buildings for takeoff of this polytechnic, and therefore ask my colleagues to allow it be. It will also help also to cure restiveness from the use of that area, which is as a result of oil effects. So they need to acquire knowledge, they need to be skilled, that they may be employable. I therefore beg that it should go on equity. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
I put the question that the bill be now read the second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it.
May 2, 2018 contributes on a bill to provide for the establishment of the Federal University of Ogoja.
I am Uzoma Nkem Abonta from Abia State. Mr. Speaker, I've listened to all the argument canvassed in support of this bill. Mr. Speaker, they are very, very persuasive. Particularly the last speaker on this bill, who cited a constitutional provision in support of the bill. We cannot progress without education. We can't do otherwise. But I want to make bold to say that in applying the constitutional provision, we must also apply some other indices. Mr. Speaker, I salute the courage of the mover of this bill, but I beg to oppose the bill. For the simple reason that we must do equity. We are bound to do justice. We are here to share. Mr. Speaker, there are some states yet to have a federal university. In Cross River State, you have 2 federal universities. Let me say, University of Calabar, the Federal College of Education of Budu, which is not up to 5 minutes drive to Ogoja, that awards degree. Mr. Speaker, in my state, we just have 1 federal university. We've been clamoring for 2. We don't have 1. No, we have half. University of Agriculture only. We've been clamoring for 2. Some other states don't have. They are clamoring some. In as much as we agree, this it. But we also to do, we must, in budgeting or spend or site infrastructure, we must balance it across the states or the federation. Ogoja is one of the oldest provinces. I agree. What he's asking for is subject to availability of funds, like the rules and business said. For example, if we sit here now and say, at the 3rd university, when some states are yet to meet the constitutional provision, then we have turned to a house that is unfair to other states. If you look at some of those who ask for the polytechnics and all whatnot, they ask it based on equity. They don't simply ask based on need only. They ask based on equity. We do not have. In federal character, if we're applying the principles of federal character, are we justifying in adding 3 universities when some don't have 1? The answer is no. I am happy the people will know he's working for them now. I wish today was Thursday, so they will see this canvassing that he's working for them. Sentiment apart, if we are to share, to give every state a sense of belonging, can we serve some states and add some? The answer is no. Therefore, in fact, if he's even asking for a polytechnic, we say, okay, that one does not exist to serve the middle class. But right now, they have 2, some do not have. I asked for a polytechnic for my state. Some other people also asked for. And if you look at all those who moved for college of education or universities, none exist in their place.
May 9, 2018 contributed on the bill to establish the Nigerian Natural Medicine Development Agency.
In China, more than 1/3 of their earnings comes from traditional orthodox medicine under the names of acupuncture and all whatnot. Mr. Speaker, the problem is that except we have this agency with a proper legal backing, we cannot do codification and the proper classification and codification and all whatnot required of this medicine. Therefore, the bill seeks to get a legal framework for the scientification of our homemade medicine. Let me give you a specific example. Most men and all whatnot will seek to buy the English medicine to enable them do the needful by the Viagra and all whatnot. Whereas in all nooks and corners, the Malams have a very more effective natural roots that have no side effects. But because there is no agency to study and codify these natural medicines, we allow that which we are blessed with. When we talk about diversification of economy, we can also do this. If China could, through all manner of teas and all whatnot, make money, why won't we have an agency to gather, evaluate, classify, codify what we have, what is in abundance, that we may also use it as our own way.
May 16, 2018 contributed on a bill to establish the Police Procurement Fund for the procurement.
Mr. Speaker, what I'm saying is this. By our rules, we now have a window for such emergencies where what he's arguing for is not provided. Mr. President did not throw away the whole bill. He agrees, but raised germane constitutional that we all agree with him. If we look at this portion of our bills, of our rules, Order 1, Rule 2, we can now agree by resolution to look at the offensive area, take it away, and present it back to him, because we must, every day we'll come here and stand for 1 minute for those who are being killed. Police are helpless. We must find, and that is not riding, we must find a way to make sure that the police is well funded, is well equipped. Mr. Speaker,
honorable colleague, please silence, please silence.
We know very well that the conditions of service of our police people today, we may not hold them to ransom. We can't blame them. They are working virtually with nothing. Mr. Speaker, a policeman here cannot communicate with the policeman just at the main gate because they lack this equipment. Therefore, there's no facilities, there's no infrastructure, there's no even technical know-how, there's no capacity building. What are you having today? They are now busy recruiting 6,000 policemen, which is not even insufficient, while we need about 200,000 policemen. Where is the money? What do we do? So we must declare security sector a critical area, an emergency fact, and police is where we must start from. So if we fail today to provide funding for police, then we are planning that security must continue. Therefore, I want to say, in serving this bill, that we should now apply our rules, take it back, and then expunge those offensive areas that Mr. President complained, because Mr. President is constitutionally right. If we delete that and send back to him, will he refuse? I therefore say that we should do this so that we can protect life and property, which is the right thing to do. Otherwise, we'll be asking police to do their work without having any money. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
July 18, 2018 sponsored a bill to amend the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission Act 2004 to ensure the Commission's adequacy in performing the statutory functions of efficiency.
Act to amend the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission Act, Cap. 7 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 to ensure the Commission's adequacy in performing the statutory functions of efficiency, monitoring revenue accruals and disbursement, and for related matters, the rest of the second term, I so move.
Honorable Abonta, please lead the debate.
The intent of this bill is to empower and put the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission in a proper perspective to do functions as derived from Section 153, 1N, and Paragraph 33, and Part 1 of the Third Schedule of 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. Mr. Speaker, it's very, very obvious of the revenue leakages we are having now, and being desirous of blocking these leakages and giving proper account, then the needful needs to be done. Mr. Speaker, one of the functions or the critical functions of revenue mobilization is to monitor the accruals. The basic function of this commission involves field work. You agree with me today, a typical example is that an NPC is not monitored. FRS is not monitored. Customs is not monitored. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, even the tanker that brings the fuel needs fuel to bring the fuel. As it is, the commission is not funded and got no statutory revenue to monitor it. During the public hearing, they lamented that the Ministry of Finance even refused to release their fund, so they could not perform their functions and their duties. We are by this bill trying to say, let all the revenue generation agencies devote 0.2% or 0.2% of their accruals, or as may be determined at the public hearing, to the revenue mobilization, so that they will have sufficient funds to do the re-monitoring and disbursement. Mr. Speaker, today we are told FAC could not take place because an NPC couldn't present the accruals. Why? Nobody monitored them. Mr. Speaker, we do not know the actual accruals from customs because they lack proper monitoring. Therefore, in this administration that we're trying to block all the leakages and have a better placement of government, we should have a way to fund them properly to do the needful. I will not bother the House seeing the time is so much spent, but at the public hearing, the actual retention should be determined so that at source they'll be able to have what to work with. As it is now, the revenue generation agencies are not monitored, so the accruals of Nigerians are not known, cannot be dictated.
May 9, 2018 contributed on a bill to establish the Nigerian Natural Medicine Development Agency.
In China, more than 1/3 of their earnings comes from traditional orthodox medicine under the names of acupuncture and all whatnot. Mr. Speaker, the problem is that except we have this agency with a proper legal backing, we cannot do codification and the proper classification and codification and all whatnot required of this medicine. Therefore, the bill seeks to get a legal framework for the scientification of our homemade medicine. Let me give you a specific example. Most men and all whatnot will seek to buy the English medicine to enable them do the needful, by the Viagra and all whatnot. Whereas, in all nooks and corners, the Malams have a very more effective natural roots that have no side effects. But because there is no agency to study and codify these natural medicines, we allow that which we are blessed with. When we talk about diversification of economy, we can also do this. If China could, through all manner of teas and all whatnot, make money, why won't we have an agency to gather, evaluate, classify, codify what we have, what is in abundance, that we may also use it as our own way.
May 16, 2018, contributed on a bill to establish the Police Procurement Fund for the procurement.
Provided. Mr. President did not throw away the whole bill. He agrees, but raised germane constitutional that we all agree with him. If we look at this portion of our bills, of our rules, Order 1, Rule 2, we can now agree by resolution to look at the offensive area, take it away, and present it back to him, because we must, every day we'll come here and stand for 1 minute for those who are being killed. Police are helpless. We must find, and that is not overriding, we must find a way to make sure that the police is well funded, is well equipped. Mr. Speaker,
honorable colleague, please silence, please silence.
We know very well that the conditions of service of our police people today, we may not hold them to ransom. We can't blame them. They are working virtually with nothing. Mr. Speaker, a policeman here cannot communicate with the policeman just at the main gate because they lack this equipment. Therefore, there's no facilities, there's no infrastructure, there's no even technical know-how, there's no capacity building. What are you having today? They are now busy recruiting 6,000 policemen, which is not even insufficient, while we need about 200,000 policemen. Where is the money? What do we do? So we must declare security sector a critical area, an emergency fact, and police is where we must start from. So if we fail today to provide funding for police, then we are planning that security must continue. Therefore, I want to say, in serving this bill, that we should now apply our rules, take it back, and then expunge those offensive areas that Mr. President complained, because Mr. President is constitutionally right. If we delete that and send back to him, will he refuse? I therefore say that we should do this so that we can protect life and property, which is the right thing to do. Otherwise, we'll be asking police to do their work without having any money. I so move, Mr. Speaker.
July 18, 2018, sponsored a bill to amend the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission Act 2004 to ensure the Commission's adequacy in performing the statutory functions efficiently.
Act to amend the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission Act, Cap. 7 Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004 to ensure the Commission's adequacy in performing the statutory functions of efficiency, monitoring revenue accruals and disbursement, and for related matters, the rest of the second term, I so move.
Honorable Abonta, please lead the debate.
The intent of this bill is to empower and put the Revenue Mobilization and Fiscal Commission in a proper perspective to do functions as derived from Section 153, 1N, and Paragraph 33, and Part 1 of the Third Schedule of 1999 Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria as amended. Mr. Speaker, it's very, very obvious of the revenue leakages we are having now, and being desirous of blocking these leakages and giving proper account, then the needful needs to be done. Mr. Speaker, one of the functions or the critical functions of revenue mobilization is to monitor the accruals. The basic function of this commission involves field work. You agree with me today, a typical example is that an NPC is not monitored. FRS is not monitored. Customs is not monitored. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, even the tanker that brings the fuel needs fuel to bring the fuel. As it is, the commission is not funded and got no statutory revenue to monitor it. During the public hearing, they lamented that the Ministry of Finance even refused to release their fund, so they could not perform their functions and their duties. We are by this bill trying to say, let all the revenue generation agencies devote 0.2% or 0.2% of their accruals, or as may be determined at the public hearing, to the revenue mobilization, so that they will have sufficient funds to do the re-monitoring and disbursement. Mr. Speaker, today we are told FAC could not take place because an NPC couldn't present the accruals. Why? Nobody monitored them. Mr. Speaker, we do not know the actual accruals from customs because they lack proper monitoring. Therefore, in this administration that we're trying to block all the leakages and have a better placement of government, we should have a way to fund them properly to do the needful. I will not bother the House seeing the time is so much spent, but at the public hearing, the actual retention should be determined so that at source they'll be able to have what to work with. As it is now, the revenue generation agencies are not monitored, so the accruals of Nigerians are not known, cannot be dictated.
The ayes have it. Clerks invited to read the long title.
Honorable Speaker, honorable members, a bill for an act to amend the Revenue Mobilization, Allocation and Fiscal Commission Act, Chapter R7, Laws of the Federation of Nigeria 2004, to ensure the Commission's adequacy in performing the statutory functions of efficiently monitoring revenue accruals and disbursement and for related matters. Second reading.
October 24, 2018, sponsored a bill to alter the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria 1999 to increase the retirement age of judicial officers appointed to other courts other than the Supreme Court and Court of Appeal.
Mr. Speaker, what we're asking is, the older the stay of the judges, the more they are matured. Mr. Speaker, the House found it fit and necessary to increase the retirement age of Supreme Court and Court of Appeal to 70. Because as at the time they are now coming to get the experience, they were asked to leave at 65. Mr. Speaker, it is also just like the legislature. The older the legislator, the more matured they are. It will be very, very unreasonable and unfair to ask a judge of a high court or other courts of record to vacate upon attaining 65. Mr. Speaker, some judges are appointed at 60, 62. And by the time they begin to be of real value to the system, they are being made to leave because of age. Mr. Speaker, we got this clue when some judges who went to Supreme Court had to leave after 3 years of service because of age. And now we deemed it fit to change it to 70. On that note, I'm also asking that the judges of the Federal High Court, other courts of Court of Record, should also be allowed to leave at 70. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, we sat down here and also changed the age of professors because we deemed it fit that upon research and all whatnot, you get a better professor. So if we had asked professors to leave at 60, 65, we'll be doing this service to Nigeria. And therefore, this is a harmless bill, but try to bring about professionalism, thorough job, and maturity among judicial officers. I want to suggest and beg strongly that colleagues should allow this bill do a second reading. On a lighter note, just as the Speaker asked, what bill is this? Most of us who are also in the practice of legal business, if we do not increase the age, assume Mr. Speaker gets appointed at the point of sit-out to the bench at the age of 60. Is he going to serve only 5 years? I mean, he must be able to do 10 years or above, because I know that he must have garnered a lot of experience while here and so on, that the bench may need him one day. On that note, sir, I pray that this bill be allowed to do a second reading at the committee stage. We will find the appropriate ways and means to bring our judicial officers in a uniformity and a par. I thank you, Mr. Speaker. I pray that be allowed to do a second reading. Thank you.
November 13, 2018, contributed to a bill to prohibit the killing and exploitation of donkeys or its consumption.
Away donkeys. Therefore, I'm of the opinion, Mr. Speaker and honorable colleagues, that while we are not looking at the outright prohibition from consumption of donkeys, because if you go to Ebonyi today, Abakaliki particularly, and talk about non-eating donkey, then you may lose your vote, the whole of that area. Therefore, I'm of the view that we look for a middle course. If I may ask the author of this bill, are we going to say eat only one donkey in a week so that others can stay? Or are we going to say monthly or not? I should also think that we should look for a way of increasing having the multiplication of donkeys. Therefore, the emphasis should be the Ministry of Agriculture. What are they doing in preserving and multiplying donkeys? Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, you will agree with me that cattle have a kind of protection and subvention for those who rear cattle. We've been talking about cattle settlement. We're talking about herdsmen. Nobody's talking about donkey men. Nobody's talking about prevention and protection of donkey men. Therefore, the attention being given to cattle rearing should also be extended the attention being given to cattle rearing should also be extended to donkey rearing and protection. Mr. Speaker, it will not be wise to say that this bill should be stepped down. It will not be wise to say that we should kill this bill. I think that the right thing to do is to let a committee look at this bill properly and see what are the merits and the demerits in it, and come out with a solution that will help us in future. Mr. Speaker, I do not think that the distinction is so much that they will all disappear, but we must do something to multiply it. Therefore, I would beg honorable colleagues to allow the committee to look at this.
December 5, 2018 sponsored a bill to establish PRODA, Enugu, to conduct scientific, engineering and technological research aimed at facilitating the domestication and industrialization of appropriate technology.
There are some sectors of our economy and industries that are subject to our procurement laws but are not public, the IOCs. Therefore, in providing for these youths who are not disabled but perhaps disadvantaged, or who are not disadvantaged but perhaps are, the system is not good for them, particularly the argument of second to the last speaker, who agreed that sharing wealth must not be on one hand. I therefore want to say that 20% or as may be determined by the public hearing of public procurement and all procurement that are subject to our laws. For example, IOCs, they have more procurement than other areas. Are we also going to apply that there so that you can capture the use of those areas? So you can capture that. May I also say that, like the leader argued, in crafting this, because most of them may not be at the public hearing, we should craft it in a manner, in a way that it will stand the test of time. For example, it says indigenous companies, indigenous youths.
December 5, 2018 contributes to a bill to amend Public Procurement Act 2004 to make mandatory.
There are some sectors of our economy and industries that are subject to our procurement laws but are not public, the IOCs. Therefore, in providing for these youths who are not disabled but perhaps disadvantaged, or who are not disadvantaged but perhaps are, the system is not good for them, particularly the argument of second to the last speaker, who agreed that sharing wealth must not be on one hand. I therefore want to say that 20% or as may be determined by the public hearing of public procurement and all procurement that are subject to our laws. For example, IOCs, they have more procurement than other areas. Are we also going to apply that there so that it can capture the use of those areas? So it can capture that. May I also say that, like the leader argued, in crafting this, because most of them may not be at the public hearing, we should craft it in a manner, in a way that it will stand the test of time.
December 6, 2018, sponsored a bill to establish the Nigerian Shoreline Development and Protection.
It may interest us to know that in the last 10 years, we've lost what was calculated to be 10 nautical miles into the land. Mr. Speaker, if not that Lagos State have the financial muscle, part of Victoria Land will have been taken over by the seas and the waves. Mr. Speaker, our shorelines are under threat. I agree that multiplication of agencies may not be the best when we are trying to shrink the cost of governance. But in this instant matter, the only appropriate thing is to treat it as a specialized function to handle it. Mr. Speaker, we were able to sojourn with Honorable Daniel Reneju. He was pointing to us 2 miles into the sea where he had attended secondary and primary schools that were overtaken by ocean. If something is not done seriously, we will lose most coastal communities to ocean surge. Thank God for Lagos and their strength, trying to fight it. It is enormous. It's only something the federal government can do and set aside a dedicated agency specialized in fighting the shores, like we did in Greenwall based on desertification. Desertification encroaches some meters every other year. The water goes into miles every other year. I therefore think that in the 7th Assembly, we canvassed this bill, but not to the logical conclusion because of explosion of time. My only fear is that I pray the explosion of time will also not catch up with this, but it's desirable. So I want to beg my colleagues that not only allowing go to second reading, but to be committed to committee of the whole House for his consideration.
As the legislative sun was setting for the 8th Assembly, he had generated more bills and had helped other co-sponsors be at same page with him. April 9, 2019, contributed on a bill to provide for the suppression of piracy and other maritime.
As lofty as the bill is, may I ask, what is the functions of NIMASA? Are we repealing NIMASA by this? Mr. Speaker, it would be ideal and proper to give effect to provisions of United Nations Convention, and that's done by treaty. We can sign, adopt such a treaty, giving effect to that convention. Are we required to use a bill where there's existing laws to ratify or give effect to a convention? No doubt, piracy and other marine offenses is such that bedevils our maritime sector. However, Mr. Speaker, we should use and practice the proper approach to get it done. Leaders, sir, you are aware of the existence of NIMASA laws. You are aware that NIMASA is charged with the prevention of privacy and other maritime offenses. Are we repealing NIMASA? I should think, in order not to bring ourselves to somewhat look like a confusion or duplication of laws in our statutes, we should step down this bill, align it with NIMASA, or repeal NIMASA and put it in. It will be out of place, Mr. Leaders, for us to allow NIMASA law to exist, which does the same function in prevention of piracy and other related maritime offense, and we also bring another bill. Of course, the president will not even sign. He has just returned 10 now. So why are we laboring to, we provide him an excuse not to even sign, because it's duplicity, sir. Therefore, honorable colleagues, if you look at this item being considered, it's existing law under the Nimasa law. I want you to hear me. It's existing under the Nimasa law. However, the United Nations Convention condemning piracy is laudable. And how do we confirm or bring it to order is to ratify such a convention. So I should think that we should separate these issues, keeping away in a different bill, ratification of United Nations Convention on Laws of the Seas, and go ahead and ratify it. And then allow NIMASA or amend NIMASA to have more powers to fight piracy and other related offenses. This bill, having emanated from the Senate, I should think that we should not take as they brought to us, we are at liberty to modify, adopt. Very laudable, because piracy had cost us a lot of evil in Nigeria, in our official, in our maritime industry. We should be attacked, but however, not at the expense of double legislation. I therefore move and strongly ask that we step down this bill for us to align it properly, in the option that the bill should not.
April 11, 2019 contributed on the bill to establish the Chartered Institute of Forensic and Investigative Auditors of Nigeria for effective regulation, registration of members, and determination of what knowledge.
Mr. Speaker, it will interest you to note that pre-1965, there are no forensic investigation anywhere in the world. So any law on auditing, investigations, pre-1965 had no forensic components. Mr. Speaker, some persons seem to quarrel about the use of the word auditor. That for you to be an auditor, you must be XYZ charter to be an auditor. No, it's not so. We are in a world where the fraudsters had gone very scientific, using technology negatively. Therefore, we also need a forensic technology, a forensic mechanism to unravel the fraud mysteries, more so advanced fee frauds. Mr. Speaker, the bodies we have now are trained not in fraud auditing or investigative. They are merely in ICANN and they keep the books and formulate what could be on the companies. But forensic auditors are trained, skilled in fraud detection and prevention and criminal activities. You don't need to be an accountant to be a forensic investigator and auditor. Lawyers are there. I'm a member. Police officers are there. Economists are there. Sociologists are there. It takes a combination of this team to unravel. Of course, scientists are there. Mr. Speaker, if you're very close to your ATM, somebody else is just decoding what you're doing in your card ATM machine. It's scientific. It needs forensic auditors or investigators to know what you are doing. We're talking about cybercrime. That's another area they specialize in training and auditing. Mr. Speaker, honorable colleagues, is there any training in Anang or ICANN about cyber auditing? Yes. What we are saying is, Mr. Speaker, let me read a little background of the bill. The emergence of forensic and investigative auditing on the global scene was based on the realization that fraudsters had gone sophisticated and, in some instances, taking advantage of 21st century digital revolution to perpetrate that was undetectable by conventional and statutory auditing. Major accounting and auditing scandals which had led to the collapse of corporate giants in the United States and parts of Europe compelled many corporate organizations in Europe to introduce forensic auditing. Is that not what we're having in Nigeria today? Most companies are collapsing because of poor auditing forensically qualities. We are told, I don't want to mention names, we are told that big companies are doing so well. Let me not go far. Banks, they are being audited, they quote major huge profit on paper, yet they collapse. They're either being merged or they're out of market. We can count on the speaker more than 10 banks on the finger that had collapsed. Yet they had auditors who certified their books as fit and proper. Yet nobody had been disciplined for improper information that led to collapse or loss of funds. Therefore, this bill seeks to give a legal backing to establish a Chartered Institute of Forensic and Investigative Auditors. The question to ask is, must we continue with the old pattern? Must we continue in that same way when activities all over the globe is now scientific? Activities all over the globe is now digital. Must we continue to look for the fraudster in an analog manner? No. The present government has been fighting what we do corruption. Continuing this way will mean allowing corruption to still have a fertile ground. Therefore, I want to beg my colleagues, if you don't like the word auditors or auditing, there could be a final redraft that will delete what you know one. But the important thing is we need to have forensic auditors. Mr. Speaker, I want to pose one question. Why is it that each time we need forensic auditors, we'll go to US and UK to bring them? And the thing to know is we will always contact ICANN, who will outsource the forensic investigators outside and bring them and pay them. Why must we do that when we can train and have them here? If we do not need forensic auditors, why are we going out to hire forensic auditors to audit our huge companies like an NPC?
April 23, 2019 contributed on a bill to establish the Chartered Institute of Mediators and Conciliators of Nigeria to determine what standards of knowledge and skills to be attained by persons seeking.
This bill, because of the benefits. Mr. Speaker, lawyers are very learned people, and that they are only learned class of persons who will not behave like those ICANN body. But this bill is talking about legal system and a new way of solving matter. The bill is not saying take away matters from court. Mr. Speaker, consent judgments are also part of the judgment from the court. The bill is seeking to set up what it calls conciliation mediation without the rigors of litigation. The bill, like the leader presented, is not so that lawyers will not earn their money. The bill is seeking not to make lawyers just to monopolize conciliation arbitration. It's only seeking to expand the legal system. Mr. Speaker, our jurisprudence is not more of inquisitorial or acquisitorial. We're trying to bring it back so that we can sit down and agree without necessarily spending the time of having the whole legal hearing. Mr. Speaker, lawyers today are also schooling to be arbitrators, chartered arbitrators. They are not saying it must now be the exclusive of lawyers. No society is static. Societies keep evolving as human beings are growing. New methods are coming. That is what I must know. That no particular system must be left to a particular group of persons to do a thing. Therefore, this bill will help to decongest the court system. Like the leader said, Lagos is operating what they call multi-door, the ADR, and it's been effective. But what you don't know is that they have to get permission from court to go and do it, and then refer back to court for court to endorse what they've done as court's own system. If both parties agree, we want this to resolve. Of course, we now endorse the arbitration. So most companies now, everybody now will add, should there be a dispute, this is the mode of arbitration or conciliation. So should a Ghanaian and Nigerian company have an issue over a thing, they can say they want an arbitrator on so place. It abridges the time of litigation, it abridges the expense of litigation, but lawyers are also involved, they also earn their fee. Therefore, it is expedient that we give this a passage so that wax does not come in. So for you to say you are an arbitrator or mediator, you pass through the rudiments of the training and schooling. It will help us.
April 30, 2019 contributed to a bill to amend the provisions of the River Basins Development Authorities Act 2004 for equitable distribution of RBDA in Nigeria.
The injustice being done by the previous act wants to be corrected by this bill. Mr. Speaker, I want to believe that I'm speaking the minds of members, particularly from the Southeast, by virtue of the act being sought to be amended. The Southeast have got only one development authority. Therefore, if the intent and purpose of this bill is to address the injustice where some sections will have up to 2 or 3, I think we should, without delay, pass this bill and reschedule it for consideration and, if possible, a third reading, that every geopolitical zone will have equal number of development, river basin development authority. If funding is the issue, we will get there, we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But for now, let every zone feel like they are part of the federation. Therefore, I will support this bill wholeheartedly and urge that the consideration and other things required to be done on this bill should be fast-tracked. I so speak, Mr. Speaker.
April 30th, 2019 sponsored a bill to repeal the Center for Automotive Design and Development Act 1992, the National Automotive Council Act 1993, and provide for the establishment of the NADDC.
Debate on general principles of a bill for an act to repeal the Center for Automotive Design and Development Act 1990.
East and West Fed Constituency of Abia State. Mr. Speaker, may I move for a bill for an act to repeal the Center for Automotive Design and Development Act 1992, the National Automotive Council Act 1993, and provide for the establishment of the National Automotive Design and Development Council and for related matters. The right second time I so move. Design sector. The bill seeks to also bring into bearing conformity with the modern technologies in the automotive sector. We're only trying to repeal the bill of 1992 and that of 1993. You will agree with me that from 1992 to now, the world had gone digital. A lot of invention not anticipated had come to be. Rather than having duplications and repeat of bills, we are trying to codify and unite all that concerns automotive design and development into one volume. Mr. Speaker, you'll agree with me that we are talking about engineering, that from 1992 till now, we have witnessed a lot of industrial revolution, particularly in the areas of technology, automotive, and all whatnot. For us to still operate the moribund act will look like setting the hand of the clock behind and trying to also not encourage the upcoming automotive industries. Therefore, this bill seeks to fast track and bring to conformity what will take Nigeria to the promised land as far as automotive sector is concerned.
The question is that the bill be now read a second time. Those in favor of the motion say aye. Those against it say nay. Ayes have it.
May 9, 2019 contributed on the bill to provide for the establishment of Federal Polytechnic, ITEM.
I want to speak in support of this bill that Abia State, like I argued in the other sister bill, on the grounds of equity and justice, deserves Federal Polytechnic. Mr. Speaker, we are operating a federal system where the confederating states or components are meant to partake on equal footing as other components. Mr. Speaker, from all the applications we are receiving here, it is very, very clear that Abia State is one of the states that had benefited least in federal projects. Mr. Speaker, I also want to believe again that I'm speaking the minds of the Abia representative here in this House that as a matter of equity and justice, Abia State deserves a federal polytechnic. Mr. Speaker, when the sister bill of federal polytechnic of Abia State came up here, I supported wholeheartedly on the same arguments I'm canvassing here. I said earlier on that Abia State alone processed 5 applications, 5 bills for the siting of Abia Federal Polytechnic, Abia State. As much as I support this bill, permit me to deviate from citing. Mr. Speaker, Abia State needs a polytechnic built urgently by federal government. But we are saying it should be cited in the most favorable environment for academic exercise. Mr. Speaker, my brother and colleague applied for one. I did. Senate did. They have transmitted theirs here. That of the House is not completed. Are we going to present the 5 of them to Mr. President to give us 5 polytechnics? The answer is no. Do we deserve a polytechnic? The answer is yes. Therefore, I'll canvass again that the polytechnic for Abia should be sited in Ukwa, with stable land, with all the environment conducive for learning. All these areas are checked up. Therefore, while I support this bill for the passage to be read the second time, at the committee level, like you advised, we'll be able to know, considering the topography, the geography of Abia State, where will we locate these polytechnics out of these 5 applications. Mr. Speaker, you agree with me that Aba had been considered here. And then it generated a lot of heat in favor and against. And we're saying the state police is also there, the place is congested. So, in the wisdom of the House and the committee, at the committee stage, we'll be able to know where best to locate it. But for Abia State, we deserve a polytechnic.
May 14, 2019 contributed on a bill to repeal the Local Government Basic, Constitutional and Transitional Provisions Act.
Speaker, like you state here, like your point, that a bad law remains law until repealed. I've been wondering why we still have some military mentality in our democratic setting. This is part of the reasons why we think that way. How can we, after how many years of unbroken democracy, we still have a military status in our book? As far as I'm concerned, legally, this law sought to be repealed is merely decorating our law books unduly. The Constitution, which is the ground norm, provides which is superior, how local government will be done. Now that we're even contemplating of the financial autonomy or whatever, we should hide this law and bury it permanently so that nobody makes reference to it in any form or shape. I therefore want to support that this bill be not only be passed the second time, but let us change our rules that we'll do the third reading and do the finality of this today and conclude it. It should not continue to exist in our statute books. But if we need to codify our books, there are more laws like this that should be shown the way out. I therefore, without much ado, recommend statutes, the grand norm guiding the local government. It says constitutional and transitional provision. It's even so. It's even along with our constitution, constitutional and so which is except that we're saying that on the part of local government, the constitution has been suspended.
May 16, 2019, co-sponsored a recommittal of bill to establish the Southeast Development Commission.
We can say we want to start a generating power plant. One state can build it, Mr. Speaker. The capacity will come from the joining of resources from the sister states to get it done. As a matter of fact, if we understand what we're doing, there should be commissions on the regional basis. Mr. Speaker, it is not by default. It is as a necessity that we're asking for this. Can we not copy what had happened in other climes and what they need? Why are we? Can we know the single reason? Somebody said, can't we have National Development Agency? What is government, Mr. Speaker? Government is the federal government is the National Development Agency. Is it working? We all know the answer. It's not. Therefore, to attend to our need according to our pulse, Mr. Speaker, the problem in Lagos State may not be the same in Kano. The problem in Kano may not be the same in Benue. Therefore, we have individual problems as to the state, and they must also be solved in that manner. I do not think the opposers of this bill had read the content of the bill. Apart from funding that will come, they're also asking donations from the states, companies of the state themselves. The members may decide to tax every factory they are donate, give us this as a social responsibility, and identify what they need. It does appear that if you don't want this bill, you are trying to stifle development there. I don't want to go back to the past of the history of the Civil War and all whatnot. 2 years ago, a bomb left in Enugu exploded. There's a request for the military to clean up all the things there. But that is not a different issue. I want to speak to the problem here, which is developmental commission to remedy the past and start to the future. Who is against it? For what reason? My dear colleagues, I am pleading to you. Create history today. Unite Nigeria. Give us a sense of belonging. And I want to pray to Honorable Falaki to please speak to it, support it. Let me also tell you, we do not, this part of the chair, I'm addressing the chair, I'm addressing the speaker, not the chair. That's the two differences. Mr. Speaker, the Southeast is saying, from our own commonwealth, from what the nation will give us the framework to cite it and put it. That's all we're asking. We're not saying, give us what belongs to the Southeast, or Southwest, or what. Mr. Speaker, most people here, let me liken it to missions. We do not want to do parish. We say, give us the opportunity to do a cathedral thing, so that where all the parishes will join effort, we shall have our cathedral. So please, honorable colleagues, do not oppose it. Help us with it. We are begging you that we may be able to. In fact, the parting gift you will close this assembly with, I must beg you, is to allow us in Southeast to wind up 8th Assembly, hopefully, belonging, feeling a sense of belonging. I beg of you, Mr. Speaker, I therefore pray that
May 16, 2019, sponsored a bill to provide the establishment of the FCT Health Insurance Agency.
Commencement of debate on the general principle of a bill for now to provide for establishment of the Federal Capital Territory Health Insurance Agency to institute the Federal Capital Territory Health Insurance Scheme for all residents of the Federal Capital Territory and for related matters. Standing in the name of Honorable Uzoma Nkem Abonta, I now invite Honorable Abonta to move that the bill be now read the second time.
Rise to move that a bill for an act to provide for the establishment of Federal Capital Territory Health Insurance Agency to institute the Federal be read the second time. I so move, Mr. Speaker. At Abuja, Federal Capital Territory per se can only enjoy legislation from National Assembly. In other words, it is our duty to legislate and make law for Abuja and its environment, the Federal Capital Territory. Mr. Speaker, this bill seeks to establish Federal Capital Territory Health Insurance Agency for the inhabitants and occupants of Abuja. Mr. Speaker, it's a well-known fact that health is becoming an issue. It's a well-known fact that paying medical bills now is becoming an issue. Mr. Speaker, just a few hours ago, we sat down here trying to discourage capital flight and medical tourism. This bill seeks to provide the remedy we are seeking for in that other bill in curbing officers traveling abroad on medical tourism. Mr. Speaker, if a proper health insurance is put in place, it will be for the benefit of the rich, the poor, the big and the small. Therefore, in fulfilling our legislative duties as National Assembly that legislates for Federal Capital Territory, I urge my colleagues to look at this bill, the intendments, and pass him. I tried to summarize the functions of the agency to be ensure effective implementation of policies and procedures of the health scheme. So issue appropriate guidelines that will bring about that, manage the health scheme in accordance with the provisions of the bill, promote and develop telemedicine and other programs for wider participation in the scheme. Mr. Speaker, the essence of this agency is quite enormous. These are one piece of legislation that can improve the health care system of the place. I therefore pray that the bill be passed second reading, and in fact will urge Mr. Speaker to remit the bill straight to the Committee of the Whole.
Those against say nay. The ayes have it.
May 22, 2019, contributed on a bill to establish Federal University of Land Resources Technology.
On all fours. We are told in economies that land is the first factor of production and the most important one, and we're not taking our own seriously. Because I want to agree with this bill that today, this bill is being stretched by the fact of the climate change. Therefore, any study relating to land and the resources ought to be. Mr. Speaker, we are here in Nigeria today not recognizing the resources we have in the land, all the precious stones. It will amaze you to know that today Chinese come here, get our stones and produce very beautiful marbles which they even export. Therefore, I think that these bills, since they are already existing colleges, they should be allowed to grow into degree awarding institutes so that more persons will seek admissions and to professionalize their skills therein. I therefore support that in trying to help our teeming youths, the bill should be given effect and considered thereto. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
May 22, 2019, contributed on a bill to repeal the Police Act 2004 and enact the Nigeria Police.
As presented. Mr. Speaker, yes, obviously there exists fundamental error in the inherent structure contained therein. The author of the bill tried to cure or abridge those errors. I agree that we need a holistic package and reformation of police, particularly structurally. The police force we have now, we've tinkered and amended and removed Nigerian police force to all whatnot to no avail. So what we need is a conscientious effort to restructure police in its entirety. I vehemently disagree that able-bodied young men in name of state police should be incorporated into police. No, it will cause more problem than we want to solve. It will compound the issue. The command structure will now become problem. Who commands who? Is it the state young men or who? It becomes an issue. We're not yet right. I agree for state police. However, I want to opine and suggest that this bill, the intendment, the spirit is very, very correct. But I do not think that if we pass it as it is, we'll have a lot of work to do. I also want to agree that at the committee level, a lot of work could be done. But can the committee amendment, more so if it comes to committee of the whole, be able to take all the amendments required in view of the time we have now?
Hear the conclusion of the whole matter from the man himself.
God, and I think they did a good work in analyzing the awardees. I'll thank God and I give God the glory. I think I deserved it. We had worked hard to use legislation to bring about good governance. To God be the glory. It's an encouragement. I feel encouraged to do more. And I want to encourage my fellow legislators to also work hard that we may bring the change, that we may bring the development Nigeria requires. We can only get good governance through good legislation. And that is what we need to do now, we must do, and we're running to do.